computer. There we go. Sid, if you want, you can just forward the invite that you used. If you follow me on Twitter, or LinkedIn, I posted a link to join the session up there. So you can go ahead and forward that over to your fellow employee who we'd love to have join us.
We'll post it in the chat.
Yeah, thanks, Brian. So welcome, everybody. My name is Brian. My host here with me is Brian, and this is Civil Chat. If you've not joined us before, the way this works is you ask questions and I do my best to answer them. And that's pretty much it. So it's up to you to ask the questions. Now, there are two different ways to interact with us. There's the chat, and then there's the question and answer panel. The chat is great for heckling, for saying, hey, what's up with your goatee or whatever you want. The chat, the question and answers were really where you should go to. Yeah, I know, that's why I have one too, so you can do that. The chat is the questions and answers where you want to put your questions, because it lets us moderate them a little bit easier. We can mark them as answered, make sure we get them all, and they come in the order that they're asked. A lot of times I miss the chat stuff, so please make sure that you post something somewhere. Now, to start off, I usually like to throw out a tip or a trick. So I've got a couple of things that I was thinking about today. One, I could show off some of the parking tools in vehicle tracking. Or two, I've been working on dynamic blocks recently, and I've got a dynamic block that has 2 visibility states. So I figured out how to add multiple visibility states to a dynamic block, and I'm using multiple with air quotes because the dynamic block only gets 1 visibility state, but I thought it was really cool. And did I finally get a haircut? Yeah, I got a haircut like 6 months ago, man. Where you been? Yeah, so in the chat, under a rock, in the chat, just go ahead and post up, do you want to see dynamic box or do you want to see parking? Because I've got those 2 things kind of geared up and ready to go.
You can set it up to, if you want to ask you say something or heckle us in private, there isn't, send it to everyone or only send it to hosts and panelists.
Show both. That sounds like something I would say, Simon. I want to see them both.
Well, if there are no questions, you might get that privilege.
I very well might. Yeah, Simon's like, nobody asks questions. Or Simon, you could ask a question about the one that we don't choose.
There you go. That's even a better solution.
All right, so it looks like people are saying dynamic blocks. Okay, let me go ahead and share my screen here. Share screen. Screen 3. Share. Move that off to the side over there. There we go. All right, so everybody should be able to see my screen now. And what I've got here is I've got this dynamic block, and this is just something I've been working on today. And I thought, hey, this is cool. I thought I would share it with folks. And the way this works is I have 2 visibility states. Now, these aren't visibility states. These are actually lookup tables, but they act like visibility states. So what I can do is I can come over here and I can say, hey, I want to see this detail without a call out. I can turn that off, or I can do it with a single call out, or I can do it with a double call out. Now, in the past, what I've had to do is I've had to use a lookup parameter to scale this up and down and make it look really, really small so you don't really see it. But the problem is when you have attributes, which is what these are. So there's 2 attributes here. So if I double click on this, if I double click on it, come on, there we go. You can see these are attributes in here. The problem is if I shrink an attribute, it's still in the visibility state, and therefore I can still edit it, which makes no sense to me. And then over here on the other side, I've got the options to change my scales, right? So I can say, hey, there's no scale, that I can input a scale. So this is an attribute. So I can come in here and I can set, 1 inch equals 40 feet, right? So I can do scale 1 inch equals 40 feet, right? Or I can say, hey, I don't want to see a scale at all. All right, so it's a dynamic block that has 2, again, using that air quotes, visibility states. So how did I go about doing this? Well, I went to the forums, and there's a great post. I'll try to see if I can post up a link to it. I should have had that ready to go, that details how to do this. So if I go into the block editor here, so I just type BE to go into the block editor when I have it selected. And what I have is I have those 2 lookup tables. So I've got this lookup table, and I have it called callout. And then I have another lookout table, and I have it called scale. Right now, if you're used to using dynamic blocks, you'll notice that mine looks a little bit different than the standard one. And in order for you to be able to do this, you need to do the, was it a B action mode? No, block action mode, or something like that. Action bar. B action bar. Yeah, there it is. B action bar mode. I always forget the name of this stupid thing, right? So this is a system variable. So if it's turned off, it looks like what you see on my screen. If I turn it on, it looks like this. Now, in order for this to work, you have to have that turned off. B action bar mode set to 0. And that way you can see all of these different things. And so the way this works is I do have a visibility parameter in here, and I've got it set so that it's displaying 0 grips. So I don't even see the visibility state when I'm looking at the block. I then have the two lookup tables. And the way this works is let me go ahead and turn on the display of everything here. They set the location of this position. So it's just a, there's my parameters, right? So it's just a point parameter. And these control the X and the Y position of it. If you had 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 that you needed, you would just add additional position points, and you control the X and the Y position of those. Now this will make sense here in just a little bit, right? So the way this works is if I have this set to a no call out, then the position of that in the X position is at 1. If it's set to single call out, then it's at 2. If it's at double call out, it's at 3. And so this list will just grow as many as you need, and you just set this to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? Same thing with this over here. All right, so this is doing the same thing, but instead of controlling the X position, this is actually controlling the Y position. So like I said, if you had 3 or 4, you would need to put in another position, and one would control the position of the Y, X on one, X on the other, Y on one, Y on the other. So you would just add them in. All right, so that's kind of how those, and all this does is it moves this little dot around, and it's a grid, right? You can think of it as like a two-dimensional matrix, right? I guess that's the right term for that. And then what we have is we have this bridge. And what this does is it bridges the position of this to the visibility states. All right, so what I have is I have all these different visibility states here, and I've just used real shorthand because this is not going to be visible to the users at all. All right, so if I set this, let me go ahead and turn my visibility back. So if I set this to 1, 2, that's what it's going to look like. If I set it to 1, 3, right, you can see this now says custom scale. And if I set this to 1, 4, this is no scale. And so that bridge, this bridge down here has 2 lookup parameters. And the way you get the 2 lookup parameters is you need to copy. So I'm in my parameters tab on my block authoring palettes, right? So I just right-clicked on the lookout, chose copy, and then I came in and I pasted it in, and then I went into the properties of this one that I pasted in, and I named it double lookup, and then under actions, I added 2 lookups. All right, so you would just choose lookup, add, do it again, add, and that'll get you 2 lookups in there for you. All right, now these parameters, right? So if I double click on this one, it's saying, okay, if this point is at 1, 1, then I'm going to output a 1-1. All right, and if it's 1, 2, I'm going to output a 1-2. So this, again, those lookup tables are positioning this parameter, which I'm then setting a value, 1-1, right? And then this other lookup below it, so if I double click on it, it's saying, okay, if the bridge lookup is 1 to 1, then set the visibility state to that 1, 1. So this over here on the left is the visibility state. So that's the scale bar is the visibility stay here. And again, it has no grips in the drawing at all. And so it's able to set that. You just need to make sure that this allow reverse lookup is on, or it won't work. And that's all there is to it. I thought it was pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah, Simon actually says he uses this technique quite a bit to create a title block that can be switched from a metric and imperial.
Oh yeah, there you go. That's cool. So yeah, so that's what I've been working on today. And then we're trying to minimize the number of blocks that we have and try to simplify things. And one thing that I just discovered, so let me go ahead and I'll just copy this. And let me go create a sheet here real quick. Go away. Can I move that? Oh, good, I can. All right, let me go to my GUI tools, create a sheet here real quick. Oh, there we go. And I'll go ahead and paste that in. And so I'm going to set this to that custom scale. So where it says input scale, there we go. And what I've recently found, and I just found out this morning, thanks to a question from one of the folks that I work with, is I can come in here into this attribute eventually. Come on, what's taking so long? There we go. And I'm going to replace this 1 inch equals 40 with a field. So I'm going to insert a field. I'm going to reference an object. I want to specify a specific object, and I'm going to choose the viewport. There we go. And I'm going to use the, where is it?
Standard scale?
Yeah, it should be like a
standard scale, starts with an S. 4th from the bottom.
This one here? No, it was the, it's like the scale name or something like that. Where did it go? It wasn't custom scale. Huh, I can't find it now. Interesting. So I haven't actually tried this in an attribute. Maybe that's the problem. So I just put in a piece of text, inserted a field. Let's see if that's the problem. So I choose object, choose a viewport.
You got standard scale, line type scale, and custom scale. And
Yeah.
Adam is saying custom scale is the right one. And then on the right, what do you get?
Yeah, oh yeah, there it is. Yeah, custom scale, and that's what it was. It was use scale name. That's where it was. So I don't want to use a format. I want to use the scale name. So that's what I was missing. So let's try this with this one again. Like I said, I just did this morning for the first time. So I'll insert a field on top of that.
So now my question is going to come into you. Can you have a prefix pre-built into the custom field of scale?
You don't have to.
So you're not forcing your users to type scale in each time.
Nope. That's not the plan, at least.
Just asking,
yeah.
Because in my world, somebody's going to type scale in lowercase, somebody's going to put SCL, somebody's going to put the word seal because they don't know how to type, somebody's going to put a colon and semicolon.
Right. Yeah, so if I change this to 1 inch equals 30 feet, do a regen all. All right, you can see that changed. Use one of those silly architectural scales. Go 3/8 inch equals 1 foot. I don't know why anybody would use that, but there you go. So that's what I've got so far. My goal, and I'm not sure how I can do this yet, is I'm going to put this on a toolbar or a tool palette. And when I click on it to put it into the drawing, I want to bring up a dialog box that says, select the viewport that you want to link the scale to. So that's kind of my goal. So I can automate this whole field thing. But I'm not sure how I can do that yet. but I'm not sure what to do.
Probably have it linked to the sheet set, right? And then Simon said, if you link to the sheet set, then yes, you could have it do that.
Yeah. So Adam says he has a list routine for linking the scale bars. I would love to see that, Adam. If you can shoot that over to me, I'd appreciate that. B Haley at GEIconsultants.com. Sweet. Cool. So that's what I wanted to show with the dynamic blocks. Yeah. And like I said, what I want to do is I want to have that be able to put that list routine or something on the tool palette so that when I click on it, it'll insert the block and link the scale all at the same time. So that's my ultimate goal. But this is just something that I thought about this morning. So I haven't really gotten into it yet. All right. So do we have any questions yet?
One question. So
just one? Come on, guys. So you got to help me out here.
I think everybody's sitting there thinking they wanted you to show both. So the question is from Sean. And Sean said, is there a way to shortcut feature lines from one drawing to another? Could you also show how to copy one tool palette assembly from one drawing to another?
Is there a way to shortcut feature lines from one drawing to another? So the best I got for you there is no. Feature lines are not, you can't create data shortcuts for feature lines. So if I come over here and I look at my data shortcuts, what's listed here is the only things that you can data shortcut. So if I expand out alignments, and there's other things in here as well. So for example, profiles aren't listed here because they're a subcategory of alignments. Section groups are not listed here again because those are subsets of alignments. But if I go, let's see. I don't know if this will show them all to me or not. No. Yeah, so it doesn't show some of those nested under alignments. So there's a few things that are nested under alignments. Those are the only other ones that you can. But yeah, just data referencing a feature line. No, you can't do that. You can XREF a feature line. So if you're just trying to display it in another drawing, XREF it. You can always label through an XREF. So if I come over here, let me go create a new drawing.
Tom also had a suggestion. He said, what if you create a corridor and add the feature lines as baselines, then data ref the corridor?
I suppose that would work. But I guess my question is why are you trying to data reference a feature line? I don't understand. I've never been in a situation where I thought to myself, man, I'd like to be able to use this feature line in multiple drawings more than just displaying it. So I don't know what the purpose of the data reference is for, because I don't know if I can take a derefed corridor feature line and add it to a surface or grade from it. I don't think you can, but I don't know for certain. I've never tried. But if I go ahead and XREF in a drawing, let's see, let's go. Files, Autodesk. All right, I'll just bring this one in. So this is just an XREF, right? Nothing special about it. It has Civil 3D stuff in it. It has AutoCAD stuff in it. And what I want to show you real quick is that we can label through an XREF, right? So I can come in here and say, hey, I want to label this line, right? This is just a polyline. I don't even know if it's a polyline or a line, but if I come up here, annotate, add labels, we'll do a line and curve. We'll do, we'll do that one. Sure, why not? And my drawing scale is microscopic. Oh, that's right. I forgot about that. Labels through an XREF always come in at the scale of the funky, but if you go into a viewport, so let me go create my sheet here real quick. GI tools, you move out of the way. So your XREF labels, no, that's if you label, no, I don't, hang on. Why are you not updating? There it goes. Why is it not like the 40 scale? I got something weird going on here. Why is it not changing? It should be changing. Anyways, you can label through an XREF. I have no idea why this is being messed up right now, but you can label surfaces, contour labels, feature line labels. If the line changes, the labels update. You just don't erase the line and recreate the line because the label's gone because there's no line, and you can't move an XREF. Your XREF has to be inserted at 0, 0, and yeah, Sid, the Civil 3D labels don't reference the annotation scale, actually. They reference the model scale. So Sid put it in the chat, check your C anno scale. So if I go into edit drawing settings, so Civil 3D labels, that was underneath my chat over there, reference this scale here. All right. If I change this pull down here, this changes both the current annotation C anno scale and that scale. If you're in a viewport, it only looks at the viewport scale. So when, again, if you hit this pull down here, when you're inside of a viewport, it changes both the viewport scale and the annotation scale. So it's, the reason is because the Civil 3D labels predate the annotative scales. So, but yeah, you can XREF, you can label through an XREF, but there's no way that I know of to data reference a feature line, except perhaps putting it in a corridor and then data referencing the corridor, but I don't know how useful that would be.
Evan says one case scenario, he tried to use a feature line across drawings for tying to surface joints. It was a hassle. I tried doing it with survey figures and it was a terrible idea.
Yeah. So what I would do in that case, if you had two surfaces, I would data reference the one surface into the other, into one drawing, create a feature line in that drawing and have it dynamically link elevation wise to the surface. And so if that surface changes, then the feature line changes, and then that feature line is being a break line in the other surface, and it changes too.
And Tom said it would be helpful to transfer location of low high points, high point, grade breaks, awake locations, etc., from grading drawings into a grading sheet where it gets displayed and labeled.
Yeah. The one thing I would love to see on feature lines, all right, let me just go ahead and draw a feature line in here, is a change to the way they're labeled. All right, so let's go, let's see, home, feature line, create feature line from objects. All right, so it's a feature line. Woo. And what I'm going to do is let's go ahead and annotate it. So I'm going to just go add labels. We'll choose a different style this time. Maybe that's what the problem was. Multiple segment, line label. Let's see, we'll use the bearing over distance by layer. All right. So I've got all these beautiful labels in here. And I realized, you know what? I need to make a change to this feature line. I need to add a point to it. So I'm going to grab the feature line and I'm going to insert another PI. I'm going to insert a PI, I don't know, about here. And you can see the labels all update. Isn't that beautiful? Oh, hang on. Why did you not? Did I cancel out of it? I canceled out of it before I spent this, right? So the labels update. Isn't that beautiful? No, they didn't update. They just shifted down. Now this segment doesn't have a label on it. So it didn't add an additional label when I added a segment in there. It just shifted them all down. So I would love to see like a label group for feature lines to avoid this sort of thing. Just say, hey, this feature line is going to have, all the segments are going to have this type of label, but we don't.
So, so Sid has a question.
Okay.
Oh, actually, there was a follow-up question to Sean's. Could you also show how to create or how to copy one tool palette assembly from one drawing to another?
So are you referring to the full pre, who was this one?
John.
Are you talking about the entire assembly that comes from a tool palette? Let me bring up my tool palettes here. I don't know if I even have this on here. Yeah, we don't even have the full pre-built ones on our system. So so let me go ahead and create an assembly real quick.
John said yes to your question.
Okay. Assembly, create assembly. So if it's on the tool palette, just insert it into the other drawing, right? So I'm going to assume you took it from the tool palette, put it into your drawing, and made changes to it. And then you want to take that into another drawing. So I'm just going to throw a couple of links on here. And I'll do, I have no idea what this lot grade one does, but I'll throw it on there just to have something on there. Sweet. Okay, that looks horrible, but it's an assembly. And I want to transfer this from this drawing into another drawing. I don't think copy paste will work, but I'm going to try it. So I just did I selected all, I did a Control C to copy, create the new drawing. And I'll paste this in. Yeah, seemed to work. It didn't work. I didn't think it. So copy paste with assemblies doesn't always work. Let's make sure that this is still working on this side. That didn't work here either. Wow. Okay. Let me try this again. So I'll create my assembly. All right, let's use a more generic. Let's just throw in a couple of lanes here. Okay. So if I grab the assembly and I move it, the lane's done. What is going on in my drawing? Regen all? Oh, it's regen. That was weird. I'm not seeing that before. Okay, yeah, so copy paste works. You just apparently have to do a regen after moving your assembly. I've not seen that one before where I've had to do that. It's just always has moved before. Maybe I need a better computer.
So we've got follow-up comments and questions about feature lines as well as palettes. So I'm going to stick with palettes.
Okay.
A question from Sid. As you mentioned, create a tool palette. Can you step us through creating one for blocks?
Yeah, it's just really quite simple. So I've got my palettes here. So I would just go create a new palette. So I've got a new palette here. If you need a new palette, just right click on it. And this is going to be like a high level overview here. I would just go create a new, right click on an existing palette, choose new palette. All right. And then you would open up a drawing that has blocks in it. Oh, look, this drawing has blocks in it. I already have it open. Come on, close out of the block editor. So you can see I was working on this block just before I started the webinar here. All right, so I got this block here and I want to add this block to my tool palette. All right, so I simply select it and then I drag it to the tool palette without using the grips. That's the key. Don't use the grips. So I simply mouse over it, hold down the mouse key, mouse button, right? So I'm dragging it now. And then I simply drag it to the tool palette. Now, sometimes it takes a moment or so before you'll see the little plus pop up. So just wait there until you do, and then release the mouse. And that is now added to your tool palette. And now I can go into any drawing I want, click on that, and it'll insert that block into this drawing. Now, The key, one of the important things to understand here is it is not copying the block to the tool palette. This tool isn't insert this block. This tool is go to that drawing, find that block in that drawing and copy it into this drawing. So this drawing that I just drug it from, this needs to stay exactly where it is. Don't move it. Don't rename it. If you're working in an active project, I see people do this before, they'll take a block and drag it to their tool palettes from an active project. And what happens after the project's done? Well, the project gets archived. The drawing goes away and the tool palette is broken because it's looking for that specific drawing. So you want to create a block library on your network somewhere or however you have your stuff managed, and then always have your tool palettes reference that library.
So it's looking for the definition in that drawing. So if you tweak something in this drawing, like you said in the project, and drug it to the palette, it's like, oh, I tweaked from company standards and I want it to match this. It'll go reference that one, not the one matching company standards.
Right.
Until that drawing goes away in your host. So exactly. as a CAD manager, you probably should not be showing this because people will be making tweaks, keeping their own little drawings off to the side, then they don't have to make it each time.
Yeah, but there might be future CAD managers here, so.
Cool. And so there's a couple of follow-up on that. So Sid did say, so that block should live in a template. Should it live in a template instead?
No, it's not a template. It's a block library. So let me bring up our tools here. So let's see, let's go to the GI symbols. I'll bring up my miscellaneous blocks here. All right. So this particular block, this tool, if I right click on it and go to its properties, it's referencing a drawing, right? So it's going to, so the way we've got ours set up is everybody runs local. So everybody runs off of their C drive. So C CAD support is where all of our CAD support files live, right? And you can see it's just a general, it's a drawing. And that's all it is. It's referencing a drawing. Everybody has this path exactly the same on everybody's system, so it works fine. But yeah, so it's referencing a drawing. It's not the template, because if it's in the template, then that block is going to be in every single one of your drawings. And you really want that overhead for every one of your drawings. So you have a library and then you just pull from it as needed. So hopefully that answered that question. Adam, overwrite the user tool palettes with every system update.
Yeah, I was gonna say Adam's being the CAD manager I used to be when I was is no, you're not allowed to do any custom crap like that. I just overwrite everything every single time.
See, and I'm just the opposite. See, the way we've got our system set up is if I've got all my GEI toolbars or tool palettes, and you can't change those because the next time you launch CAD, it's going to override them. But if you go create a custom palette, this is your custom palette and you can put whatever you want there.
Yeah, my problem was I kept having too many people do exactly what I said, is create their own library of stuff that didn't match company standards because they disagreed with it.
Yeah, and then that's when you need to take them out behind the woodshed and give them some wall-to-wall counseling.
Nah, I had a Lisper team that said if this doesn't match just standard, go in and delete all the stuff. So they'd go into their drawings and all their non-standard stuff would be gone and they have to recreate all their work. Couple times of that, that's all it took to get them to start following standards.
Yeah. So I noticed Paul put something in the chat and says, how did you get your tool palette button to only open the Civil 3D assemblies and not all palettes?
He moved it over to the question and answer pod. So
he did. Oh, good. Okay, well, then we'll get to that.
I really appreciate that because that was going to be the next question. And I was doing a whole lot of scrolling trying to find it.
Yeah. So the way we've got our system set up is we got buttons up here that bring up tool palettes. So I've got my line work. I've got my survey line work for utilities, and it brings up the utility line work. The way we used to do this is through tool palette groups. So I could come in here, and so basically what this button used to do is it used to say, okay, let me go ahead and set a tool palette group and then set a specific tool palette from that tool palette group. But the problem I had with that is the tool palette groups are stored in the user's profile. And so if I need to update all the tool palette groups, I'd have to update the profile for everybody. And that was just a pain. So what we do now is that button actually changes a folder in your file path. So I've got this set up. So the tool palette file location, and you can see there's that custom user, custom tool palette. So if you create a new tool palette, it's going to go into here, and that I don't overwrite. But then it also sets this one. So you can see it's set to GEI Survey Utilities line work. And the only palettes that are in there are those. No tool palette group, just those palettes. And so if I change to, I don't know, say the explorations line work, go back into my options, you can see that tool palette groups is now going to the GEI explorations folder, and that's where those palettes are. So that's the way we've got it set up. If you're interested in the code that I'm using here, excuse me, let me bring that up. All right, so I just went into the customized user interface. We'll go down to the GEI menu, the ribbon, the panels. Let's see, that's the explorations. We'll go row 1, exploration symbols, GEI boring. So that's underneath there. I'm not going to take that call. I'm in in civil chat. Come on. There we go. Let me make this a little bit bigger here. And so the macro that I'm running here is this. And what I'll do, I'll just go ahead and copy that just so it's easier to, and I'll just post that in the chat. So that's what I'm doing. And I'll post it here for people that are watching the recording as well, so they can see it. All right. So it's basically saying, hey, if you can find this list routine, then run the list routine. And it's saying, hey, run number 9. And so that sets the tool palettes and basically this list routine, which actually I totally forgot about. I talked about this in a previous civil chat. And it goes through and it sets those paths, and it's complicated and long and drawn out. And let me show you. Come on. Where's my Zoom? That's not it. Where'd my stuff go? I've lost my chats. There it is. Okay. So I have a list routine. Open file. That again is copied to everybody's system. See catsport, common, lists, GEI set tool palette paths. And so basically what it does is it sets the path. There's lots going on here. I don't remember exactly what I did, but basically I've got this set up. It's a bit wise logic, right? So these are the different buttons that we have, the tool palettes that we have. And so if I wanted to display the survey utility symbols and the surveyor line work, I would just use the 8192 plus the 64, and I would put that into this list routine and would set those for me. So it's kind of cool. And it just goes through and adds in all of those paths for me. And
you say that makes a lot of sense. And he also asked, can a tool palette be shared? And I'm assuming he's talking just like, if, as a user, I create a custom one, can I share that with another user?
Yeah, so there's a couple different ways you can do that. The way we do it is we have everybody path to the same location where the tool palettes are. But if you're just like, hey, I want to send my buddy this tool palette, you can go into customize palettes, select the palette you want, right click on it, and then export the palette. All right, and then you send that off to your buddy. Your buddy goes into the same location, right clicks and chooses import, and then you can import the palette into the user. The easiest way to do it, if you're like a CAD manager, is to have everybody path to the same location and just put all your palettes there. So yeah, that
We'll ask, can you share your list routine?
Yeah.
And then
shoot me an email. I'll send it over to you. I have no problem with that.
I did put his email in the chat early on.
Yep.
So
GEIconsultants.com.
He did have a follow-up question to that. It says, is it possible to get multiple tool palette groups set in a user profile using TP Navigate, which you actually had in that call up?
Yeah, so the TP Navigate, right? It'll allow you to set the tool palette group and then set the tool palette. So yeah, you can have multiple, and that's the way we used to do it. So you would set the tool palette group and then set the tool palette.
And it looked like you still have that in your list routine when you copied and pasted the text. I saw TP Navigate in there.
Yeah. Yeah. So what that does is, so the list routine would set the the path, and then the TP Navigate would set the palette. So it doesn't set the tool palette, the palette group in my example anymore, but it used to. It just simply sets the palette. So for example, I could have, the multiple palettes here, and I have buttons that go to the same location, but set a different palette for that location.
Cool.
For example, my exploration symbols, my GEI borings takes me there. My GEI instrumentation, same palettes, it's just a different palette in that of the options of palettes. All right.
Now I'm going to jump you back to feature lines, because I missed these when you were talking feature lines. Any idea how we can override improve the feature line auto naming defaults so it reacts to the type of feature line chosen?
The type of feature line?
This is from Ian.
I'm not sure what you mean by the type of feature line. So when I go create a feature line, create feature line.
He says, feature line style.
Oh, the feature line style? You want to include the feature line style in the naming defaults. I don't know. All right, let's see if there's an option for that here. So I'm just toggling on the name, and I'm coming over here to the naming template. And here are the properties you can put in there. So yeah, you can put the style name in there. Cool. Yeah, so instead of putting in so we'll put in the feature, and then we'll put in the style name. Probably should put some spaces in there. And then the counter. Put the counter in parentheses. Come on. Yeah, so you can see that this feature line is, and I'm looking up here at the ribbon tab, feature standard 1. And if I go create another feature line, and I will use the center rail line, it is named feature line. Oh, I didn't change the default naming template. I would have to go through my settings, general commands, create. No, I don't even remember where it is. Is there feature lines in here?
Ian's saying it's a bit more complex than that. Maybe he'll shoot you an email so you can chat.
Grading. Commands, create feature lines, edit the commands, and then you can go to the default name format, feature line name template. So I'm changing it here instead. All right, put in the style name, boom, boom. And so that's now the default. So now if I go feature line, create feature line, and we will use the platform edge, toggle on the option for the name. Maybe that's what I forgot last time. And I didn't do it. I'm doing something wrong, but yeah, that's the idea. You need to put the style into the naming template. And then it should show up.
And when you were talking about how terrible if you add a point to your feature line, Tom actually said, yeah, it's even worse for surveyors when some labels are B and D and others are tagged or dragged state.
Yeah, it's just horrid. Well, I wouldn't say horrid. It's not as good as I would like it to be. Sure as hell beats doing it manually, that's for sure.
And of course, the same answer is coming true for you guys in the civil world, as I've been hearing in the Revit world for the last 6 years. Dynamo can help.
Yeah. Yeah, so Kirk put in the chat that Dynamo can help rename feature lines that have already been created. So that's an option there as well. I've played around with Dynamo. I don't use Dynamo. Not because I think it's bad. It's just that I haven't found a spot for it yet in what we do.
No, it's one of those things for me, and I think I've said this before, is Dynamo is a great tool for certain things, but it's also a crutch for people who don't know the program.
Yeah.
I see people go use Dynamo to do things like, oh, I'm going to go set this up to go do this and this and this. Is like, yeah, but if I just edited my style, I could have done that automatically and had it fixed.
Right.
So I think that's part of my problem with a lot of, not saying don't use Dynamo, just there's a lot of times where people are like, oh, I can do Dynamo to do this. I'm like, cool, I could have done that in my template and had it built in.
Right.
And
yeah, that's a good point.
You know, my biggest problem with Dynamo too is it doesn't auto update. It's a run it, get it done, run it, get it done. In the Revit world, we're so used to things automatically updating, people then forget that, oh, I've got to rerun that Dynamo script.
Oh yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, same way with Civil 3D as well. Yeah.
All right, and then we got the last question that you've got to spend 12 minutes on. What are your computer specs? And that is from Brandon.
I don't know. Let's go find out. I don't know off the top of my head.
I don't think GEI has fast enough computers for the day-to-day stuff. You guys definitely don't have a fast enough network.
So that's what I've got.
Oh my God.
I'm not a hardware guy, so I don't know how good this is. I also don't pound on the software day in and day out on big projects. I'm the CAD manager. I go in and I set up styles. I create blocks. I show people how to use Civil 3D, and then I let them go and do it themselves. So I don't know if this is a decent spec for a computer or not, but that's what I've got.
And he says, thank you. And I would say that's underpowered.
I would assume so. Probably the biggest one, it would probably be the graphics card. That's probably where my weakest point is.
Yeah, and you only got 64 gigs of RAM.
I can't go into the device manager. I'm not an administrator. Oh wait, it let me in. Maybe I just won't let me make changes. Display drive adapters. Yeah. NVIDIA Quattro P1000.
Oh, that's not too bad. That's where I do laugh, because I do have a slightly underpowered machine, but I won an HP laptop a while ago, and I upgraded it for $400. So I do have a $400 laptop. So mine's slightly underpowered, but it was a $400 laptop. So I mean, it's still bigger than a lot of my clients, but it's less powerful than what I would personally.
Yeah. Yeah, cool. Anybody else have any other questions, topics we want to talk about?
Tom followed up and said, could a reactor be used to rename the feature lines?
Could a reactor be used to rename the feature lines?
Only
I have no. Are you talking about like an Autodesk reactor?
No, nuclear reactor is what I think he was going for. Sorry, I was reading Ukraine. It started.
I don't know. The only time I've ever used a reactor, I used a reactor like 15 years ago.
Adam said
it was with a save, so it would turn off all the layers. I think
Adam said it could be done, but it would be a headache.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I dabble in the programming world, so I can create do basic list routines. That's about it. I haven't played around with reactors in a really long time. Back when I was doing when I was the CAD manager, because I was the engineer that knew the most about CAD back at my last design job, I was teaching myself VBA, which is gone away. So I was kind of annoyed with that. But anyways.
Don't you always love that stuff? You're like, hey, you're the guy who knows computers the most. You're already a CAD manager. Then you start teaching yourself something, not knowing better, and it goes away, and you're like, oh.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
It's like that .NET programming. Oh.
Yeah, I guess they all those years I learned basic in high school. That's gone away too.
Yep.
Oh, look, Sean's got a question.
Sean just posted something.
Yep. If you have a surveyed feature line and you want to make a permanent profile for it and use it in the site design, what is the best way to create a profile for it? Okay. So let me see if I understand the question correctly, Sean. So let me draw in a feature line. So I'm just going to draw in a polyline. And we'll make that a feature line, create feature line from objects. We'll assign some grades to it. Let's see. There we go. Say, hey, I want to go at 1%. And I'm going to go down at 2%. Come back up at 5%, and then go over down at 1%. All right, so I just add some grades to it. So I've got a feature line here, and basically what I want to do is I want to be able to create a profile for this, but make it a permanent profile, make an alignment and profile for this. Does that sound right, Sean? And I want the feature line to, the profile to have the elevations of the feature line and the alignment to have the horizontal path of the feature line. Does that sound like what you want, Sean? Yes. Awesome. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the feature line, I'm going to right click, and I'm going to use the quick profile command. I know what you're thinking. It was like, Brian, that doesn't create something that's permanent. I know, just chill. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and create my profile, quick profile here. All right. So there it is. You can see the ups and downs. It's kind of not very obvious, but it's there. Let me go ahead and change my scale here. Sorry, Carol, you're going to have to go away. All right, change my scale. We'll say 40. And of course, it doesn't update. I don't know what's going on with my system right now, why my scales aren't updating. Anyways, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to export this out as a land XML file. So I'll go to my output tab, export to land XML. It's going to ask me what to export. So I'm going to choose pick from drawing. I'm going to select the profile. All right, nothing there. Select OK. All right, I'll just save this. Yeah, that's fine. Drawing 4 XML, one of my documents. And now if I go into a new drawing, I can then import that land XML or the same drawing. I'm just doing this in a new drawing just so we can see. So I'll import that land XML. Under my documents, drawing 4. There's my alignment. And then if I create a profile view, it has a profile in there. So that's how I would do it. Does anybody else know of any other ways to do that?
Tom did say he has double click set on his feature lines to go to quick elevation because he can never remember where it is on the ribbon.
Yeah. Yeah. So you can do double click. You can change your double click edits by default. So for example, if I go back over here to this drawing, I love the quick elevation edit. All right. So if I double click on this feature line, by default, it's going to bring up the properties, but you can change the double click action to do pretty much whatever you want it to do. Any command you want. If you really want to be mean, you could go into somebody's computer and change the double click action for text so that it closes the drawing. If you wanted to, I wouldn't recommend doing that. But yeah, you can set it to wherever you want. It's just in the CUI. Double click actions. All right, so you can just go ahead and create a double click action here. I don't remember the exact format, but there are some examples. I believe it's under the civil. No, there's none there. They're in there here somewhere. Go Google it. You'll find how to create a double click action. But yeah, so double clicking a feature line. I love bringing up the quick elevation editor. Double clicking. I have set it up in the past. So when you double click a civil 3D object, instead of bringing up the AutoCAD project properties, it brings up that civil 3D properties for it. So double click a surface brings up the surface properties, double click a parcel brings up the parcel properties, etc.
A lot of people saying you're devious on the close the drawing comment. I was thinking it was just brilliant, not devious, but that's okay.
Yeah.
And on that note, we have no more questions, and it's the bottom of the hour.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody. I'm glad you were able to make it. Like I said, I've decided to start recording this, so I will be posting this up online somewhere. I have a channel, Civil 3D Plus. I don't know if I'm going to put it up there, maybe create a new YouTube channel for this. But yeah, so I've decided to start recording these because I think there's a lot of great information in here. And if you want to go back and listen to me talk again, you're more than welcome to. So, but with that note, thank you, everybody. And we'll see you next month. Hey, and make sure you tell people about this. We don't make any money off of this. This is not something we're doing to, I guess Brian's kind of promoting his business. I no longer have to do that. So it's not like we're making money off of this. I'm not going to spend any money on advertising. So go tell your friends, let them know, spread the word. Love to have more people here. And with that, we'll see you guys next month.
Thanks, everyone.